Hello everyone, I hope you're okay. It's the 5th of April 2024. My name is Gary Waterman. I am a former police officer and I'm a Christian. I'm going to say that, as some people have told me not to, including some Christians. I'm not going to hide the fact that there is evidence to suggest that some church networks have been set up in relation to the system of fraud, but it appears to have infiltrated every area of society. So I'm not going to hide the fact I'm a Christian. But anyway, hopefully you've seen some of my other videos. If not, please go and look at them on @GaryTruthSetsUsFree. That's @GaryTruthSetsUsFree. You can email me on GaryTheTruthSetsUsFree@gmail.com. That's GaryTheTruthSetsUsFree@gmail.com. There is a document link also where you can see various documents in relation to what is going on. And I will put most of this information within the description of this video. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about where this all started, but some of you have already seen information on some of the documents summarising what's happened. But this video is going to be particularly about the court case that has evolved as a result of that initial investigation that I was part of, all those initial inquiries. And it's a corrupt system, you will see from this video. In fact, it's an unlawful court process because you can't have an unlawfully registered entity or company making any legal application whatsoever. But that appears to have been what's happened. So I can talk about this. And what I'm going to show you is a series of documents showing you the evidence in relation to that, some emails as well, and some other evidence that you can look at, most of which you can corroborate and verify. But just to summarise, so I was, briefly, I was a director for a company, for a freehold company. And whilst I was a director, I started to establish and show evidence that there was over £167,000 missing in service charge contributions going in to the services of that building from others. And that was from 2015 to 2022 that I had the accounts for. Now, I'd always paid my, every single time since I owned that flat in 2006, every time a management company had requested the service charge payments from me, I'd paid it. And I was being led to believe that everybody was doing the same. So everyone within my company, all the other shareholders and directors and the leaseholders, I was led to believe would have been paying into this account. But it appears that had not been the case. Now, when I identified this fraud and how serious it was becoming, I tried to ensure that it couldn't continue. So as a director, I tried implementing systems that could prevent any other leaseholder or director or shareholder being victimised any further. So that was with a safeguarded accounting system where there was at least 2 or 3 signatories possibly on any higher transfers in relation to the finances around the building. Okay, just to have that safeguarded system there to check the amounts before they were actually paid out of the accounts for the building. I wanted a fully transparent account system, not accounts typed up by our management company, which was happening. I wanted the actual redacted, if necessary, bank accounts to be shown to all leaseholders so that they can be, they know that the management and the directors can be trusted that the money is being spent where it was and that there could be no fraudulent activity. I also wanted a signed management agreement to be shared with everybody, with the management companies that had signed the document with myself or other directors. And also I wanted to ensure that there was a method in place to prevent leaseholders being exploited through over exaggerated quotations because for the building. So I obtained, for example, my own, as a director, my own insurance quotations for our building, and I worked out that they were around £5,000 cheaper than what the management company had been doing. So we were paying far more than we should have been. And of course, if I'm paying more in and others are paying more in when others are paying nothing, then we're being defrauded, aren't we? If we're being led to believe that everyone's contributing. Anyway, so it's a huge issue. And of course, this is one block of flats. This will be happening nationally, I'm sure. It's worth millions and millions of pounds in relation to real estate, if not billions. And it's a really huge issue. So I tried implementing all of this. The other people in my company refused to actually put these things in place, and instead, because I was refusing to use the forged bank documents that I acquired to file our accounts, they removed me as a director. Okay, I didn't resign. I actually was removed through other people within my company. So, you know, I did my best and couldn't do it. So anyway, long story short, a court case was instigated through my non-payment, because at this point, well, I've said, I'm not going to pay any more into this building. Okay, I'm not paying into a fraudulent system. There's £167,000 from others not being paid. You've done nothing. You know, these other people have done nothing at all about these people that hadn't paid, meaning I was paying more. So I'm not paying any more until you put a safeguarded, transparent accounting system in place. Now, I was doing that not only for me and the other leaseholders in relation to my building, but I realised this was a national problem and that I needed to make an example out of this situation. Obviously, it escalated and snowballed into the real issue, which is the falsification of the Companies House register and unlawful entity company creation, which means they can get away with blue murder and cannot be held accountable, and that there will be no liability for those companies. So that's the real issue. But initially it was, I thought it was slightly more smaller scale from that. So let's crack on. Anyway, I've done a lot of talking, so I'm going to show you the documents, show you the emails, and talk you through it. God bless. Screenshots taken from the Companies House register and incorporation documents, as well as some other information in this document. Now, because it is a false, unlawful court hearing, I can talk about it in a way that I wouldn't normally, and I'll explain why it's false as well. But I do suggest you verify and corroborate the information that I'm showing you, and you can do that by logging on to the Companies House search yourself, and you can type in the companies that I'm going to show you and look at this information. Please do that. It's important that you don't just believe me and trust me. Go and check it out. You'll see it's all true, and you can verify the information. So this is looking at my company, okay, Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited. And that company started in 2007. I joined the company as director in 2009, thinking it was completely lawful. There was no issues with it whatsoever, and was led to believe nothing less. Okay. Now, when I moved into the building, I then paid, when requested by the management company that was managing the building, I paid every single time into the services of the building, because I was led to believe that everybody was doing the same and we're all benefiting from the building this company relates. So, of course, I paid everything as I was requested. So what we're going to do, if you click on the filing history within a company on the register, now so with you, when you're looking at it on a laptop, etc., it might be slightly different format than this. You may have tabs going along the page, I think, on a laptop, but you can see filing history. If you click on there and go to the oldest document, it's normally the incorporation document. So we're now looking at the incorporation document for Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited here. Now, this is extremely important because this is a legal document. It's been signed at the start of the company creation. It's got names, addresses, etc., and other company names on that incorporation document. And I'll show you an example here for this, and you will see why this is an unlawful entity company and should never have been trading. So at the top, you've got the Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited. So that's one company name. But further down on the document, you've got other companies. You've got Swift Incorporations Limited, and you've also got Jordan's Limited. Now, they're extremely important. They feature right throughout the fraud research. If you go and look at all my other videos, you'll see them all the way through this, as well as Jordan's and Sons, Vistra, that we'll come to in a minute, Waterlow's, OYES, the London Law Agencies. It's sort of a handful of companies that really crop up a lot. But going back to this, so we've got Swift Incorporations Limited. Now, because this is a legal document, if any of these other companies on the document turn out to be false entities or unlawful entities, that means my company is also unlawful because the document is not lawful. Okay, so normally it would be if everything's on there is lawful, you would then become a legal entity. So the correct details have been provided. There's no forgery used, etc. Then my company would have been legitimate and lawful. However, we're going to explain why it is not. So we've got Swift Incorporations Limited and Jordan's Limited. And we know that it was in 2007. And again, you've just got some other documents here. This is all public information. Anyone can look at this. Now, importantly, the names that are mentioned as being part of Swift Incorporations Limited on this document have never been registered. So when you go into a separate search into Swift Incorporations Limited, you can see the names that are supposed to be part of Swift Incorporations Limited as directors or secretaries have never been registered. So that in itself is a huge problem because it creates a lack of liability or accountability for those companies. And that would have been a deliberate omission, because it's happened so many times, by Companies House. Okay, they would have had these documents. They should have input this information onto the register, but they deliberately haven't. So that is the first thing I would like to point out in relation to this. So moving down, we'll now see another company here. So this is looking at a new company called Vistra Limited. I've already shown this company a lot in the other videos, but it's important I show it again because this now we're talking about a unlawful court case in relation to the non-payment of my service charges. And obviously the reason I've done that is because there's other things that can be done. As I've explained, they could safeguard the accounts. I've already been paying more than I should have been when there's over £167,000 that appears to have been omitted by others, and I was led to believe they were paying. But looking at Vistra, so we can see that in 2007, this company was called Jordan's Limited. Okay, so this was the incorporation name at the bottom, Jordan's and Sons Limited, because that's the oldest first name registered. So this shows that this was registered on the Companies House register at the startup of the company. Then it changed its name to this. Okay, and at that time, that's when our company was incorporated, Export Manor Freehold Limited. Okay, so we know this is the right record because Jordan's Limited is on the incorporation document for our company, and here we are, this was called Jordan's Limited. And you cannot have lawfully two companies with exactly the same name trading and registered with Companies House. So, however, this is the obvious forgery. So this should be the incorporation name on the incorporation document, okay? But you can see, looking at this, that it's actually Hamiplag Limited. Now that means that the illegality, the forgery in the register here, okay, because they would have had these documents, but have decided to put a completely different company name, even though the date is the same. And there is another incorporation document we'll come to. So even though the date is the same, 30th of November 1965 or thereabouts, which you can see just down in the bottom on a stamp here, but there is other things, other dates on the other forms in a minute. Companies House have chosen to put a completely different name. So that is a forgery and means this company cannot be held accountable. Now that means they can't take any, if they're an unlawful entity, they cannot take any legal action whatsoever. In fact, they cannot act in any way lawfully. Okay, now I only recently found, I didn't find this out until, I can't remember when, maybe December, January. And you'll see in a minute why I hadn't established this. You'll see how that is evident in the documents I'm going to show you. But it means they can't act in any way. And unfortunately, it means I also cannot take any legal action or litigation against that company. Okay, because you can't hold a company accountable if they don't exist lawfully or if they use false details or false addresses that are no affiliation to, etc. So you can see the problem it's caused. So my company was a unlawful entity and should never have been trading. Now all of this information, that information has been passed to the court. And what I'm going to do is, before I knew that, this was a document, okay, that was created for my application to the court. And I made a counterclaim, and we'll talk about why in a minute. And I had very good evidence for a counterclaim based on everything that had happened that I've told you about and more. But this is a summary of it. I'm not going to read it all, but it basically says a very brief summary because you don't get a lot of room on there. In fact, I've had to go onto another document you'll see. But they were trying to enforce a lease that I'd never even signed. I mean, that's not the main issue. Obviously, the main issue now is what I've realised, which is a false, unlawful entity. So all of this becomes irrelevant, really. However, at the time, I was making a counterclaim. The lease, the fire safety of the building was an issue, and within their lease that they had signed, I'm not going to name those individuals, but they had said that the insurance of the building would be up to date. Now, if there's no fire risk assessment, that would make the insurance invalid. Okay, so I was making a counterclaim that I'd paid for the services building since 2006, until when did I stop paying? 2020, end of 2022, I believe. So this is just me expressing everything I've told you about and possibly a little bit more information. Okay, and then I've just redacted my signature and a couple of other bits of information there. And then I went on to a second page. And this is just explaining what I've just told you. There's a couple of spelling mistakes in there. Okay, so you can pause this and look at it. Okay, so that was a document that I was trying to make a counterclaim. And there's also some other bits there. So you can see I had to write quite a bit. Obviously, it was a lot more complicated than this in the end. This is just keeping it basic to when I thought the company was a lawful entity. And so this is a section at the bottom of the lease. And they employed a solicitor that I'll come to in a minute to try and say that I had breached the terms of the lease. So this is the bottom of the lease. And you can see there's a section at the bottom of the lease here, signed and delivered as a deed by Gary Lee Waterman. That's me in the presence of. But there was no signature. Now, I didn't even realise this until they sent me this via the solicitor. I hadn't even signed and agreed to the lease. So it's very difficult to enforce a lease saying you've agreed to it if you haven't signed it. And underneath here, I've just redacted those, are signatures of 2 other people who were already directors, I believe, for the building. So I haven't signed it at all. Okay, so that's an important thing that you need to mention. Anyway, I started receiving correspondence from the solicitor, and that solicitor was Brady's solicitors. Okay, and this is just an email from them, which was on the 5th of January 2024. You can see at the top right there. And that is, and I've just redacted my full email, and that is just them confirming that they are Brady Solicitors Limited. Okay, and we'll come to them actually in a minute. I'll try not to forget. And then, of course, I received an order or a summons, but they called it an order from the court. But interestingly, on the order, in fact, the first one they sent me, let me show you the first one. I believe it was the first one. Not too sure if I've got it, actually. Have I got it here? Oh, no. I don't think I've got it. But the first order had several pages missing. So literally, you had a page at the beginning, and then there was a blank page with nothing on it. But they're all numbered, so I had to query it. But this is where it's very important. Now, this becomes a legal document because within this document, they are explaining the consequences of me not turning up to the court. And that includes that it may be heard in my absence and go in favour of who in this time was the claimant Export Manor Freehold Limited. Obviously, they can't make a claim because they're not a lawful entity. We now know that. But the court had put no details of who had created the document at all on the bottom. Nothing whatsoever, not a name, signature, nothing. So, of course, I grew very suspicious in relation to this. And I started querying it. So there were several emails exchanged. And much of those emails were along the lines of me saying, which I'll show you, in fact. You can see here that I've sent an email. I mean, there's several. They're not necessarily in order. This one was on February the 8th. I'm also concerned that the letters/orders being sent do not identify its sender suitably. When the full complete documents or order is sent to me, please can you ensure that the sender is identified in the bottom of the order and that it is signed by a relevant individual from the court. All of the information is necessary to ensure that I can be confident that the process being undertaken is legal, as everything so far suggests it may not be. Okay, so you can tell I already had concerns. There's another email here on the 10th of February. And I'd made a complaint because they'd refused to actually identify who had produced this document on the document itself. Okay, so I just made a complaint. I received a separate email, and the court appears to be refusing to provide information as to the identity of the creator, sorry, that's blocked off, of the order of summons. Nobody can be expected to attend a court process by the order summons of an unidentified entity. This, along with me providing evidence to the court of why the claimant is not a lawful entity, so I'd already identified at this point that it wasn't, and cannot therefore make any legal claim, as well as explaining that the fraud has already been identified, is very concerning. Because one of the things I haven't said much, actually, is that once I've reported this fraud, Dorset Police had sent me 2 emails confirming that they'd identified fraud, but then when it started to snowball and I realised how big this was becoming, they then refused to comment on those emails again and never confirmed the fraud again, and in fact refused to deal with it and provided 2 emails, as you know, that said they were or clearly shows that they were allowing an immunity from prosecution for bank employees to produce forged bank documents. But I hope you need to look at the other videos for that. So anyway, going back to this. So I had 2 emails confirming it was fraud. Okay, just for clarification, I require a copy of an order to attend any hearing that clearly identifies the creator of the order with their name, position, and signature. I also require the name and position of anyone chairing and intended to be present at such a hearing. I'm a former police officer, and the continued omission of such information risks an unlawful financial gain. So I'm quoting the Fraud Act here, or mentioning it, to some and loss to others, and could therefore be considered a crime under the 2006 Fraud Act. A document attached shows this legislation. Okay, and then so I made this complaint, and they responded, and the response was written here, but they still refused to endorse the actual legal document, which had legal consequences if I didn't attend, with the creator's name and address. And in fact, I haven't shown it here, but I sent another email asking them to confirm why they had not provided this information. But importantly, on this email that they did send, or letter, I think, attached to an email, you've got the judge that was dealing with a Judge Ashby, and we'll come to that in a minute. So, a refusal to identify who had created on the document itself, to endorse it, who had actually created it, even though there were legal consequences being mentioned, i.e. it could be heard in my absence or their absence in favour of those that did attend. That is not right. That should not be happening. I mean, that's aside, obviously, from the unlawful entity element of this. Let's look at this list. Sorry about that, just had to get the complete document. So here we are looking at Brady Solicitors Limited. Again, I'm not saying they're involved in anything they shouldn't be. I'm just showing you public record information. This is the solicitor that was instructed by Export Manor Freehold Limited. So let's look through this company. And we're looking at the incorporation documents here on the right. And I do suggest you go and verify these, as I've said before. You can see on the bottom of the incorporation document here for it, you have Eversheds LLP. See that? Eversheds LLP. And again, we'll look at another part of the incorporation document. And again, you can see Eversheds LLP. Okay. Looking further through the document, again, you can see Eversheds LLP. Okay, so they're all the way through this document. Before we move on to them, let's have a look here. You can see that appears to be a altered document. See where the lines are missing. Suggests there would have been an address there at some point. And it's missing. Now that's a signed document, which means it's a legal document. It's part of the incorporation document, and it does appear that it has been altered. So now we're going to look at Eversheds LLP. And that brings up Eversheds Sutherland's International LLP. And that's because its previous name was Eversheds LLP. That was in 2003 to 2017. So we can see it's got an address of 1 Wood Street, London, on the registration, the register for the company's house. And we can see that there's a person's name here. Sorry, the box has just moved. It's a David John Gray. Okay, if we're now looking at David John Gray within the people section. And hopefully you can follow this. You can pause it. You can slow it down. I'm also going to make the documents available to everybody so they can look at these. And you can see Eversheds Properties Limited is linked through to them. And Eversheds Properties, you can see, has Swift Incorporations Limited again attached to it, and that means Jordan's Limited will be linked to this company as well. But moving through, you can see you've got Eversheds Sutherland Legal Services Limited. They were incorporated in 2003. They were incorporated in 1988. You can see on the left-hand side here. Now this is very important, because over on the right, on their incorporation document, you have Sundar Mansukani. If you've watched my other videos, you will see that he features throughout. He links to Max Clifford, Jeffrey Epstein, the High Elm Youth Project accommodation movement that started in 1920-something. That same name links the health companies through to the fraudulent system. And so we've already got these links, and you can see here Stephen Cox. This is all part of the same incorporation documents. Stephen Cox Law Services. And in fact, all of these different Stephen Cox companies here on the right. And then some of these I've searched. As we've gone down in a minute, you'll see some more. But here is this person on the left, Eve Gregory, links to DAC Beechcroft Companies, linked to one of the shareholders of my company. Okay, well, in fact, one of the directors of my company through the research of their companies. So you've got a link already here. And this is just showing that I've searched for these Stephen Cox services as they were on the other document. And there appears to be no direct trace of the exact company names that are on there. And this is just looking forward, showing Google searches and also searching directly within Companies House. And here we've got Eversheds Trustees Limited. And looking at their original name, you can see that they had an original incorporation name, according to this, in 1928 of Walwyn Trust Limited. Okay, and then changed their name in 1983 to Legist Trustees. Now, the incorporation document is not available, but there is this document. So you can see that this does not make sense, because you've got Legist Trustees Limited, incorporated on 13th December 1928, and on the bottom of the same form, and again I suggest you go and look at this, you can see that it's saying that it's dated in 1928, but the register says that it was this company name in 1928. Not this one. It didn't change to this company name until 1983, according to the register that's been put by Companies House. Now, remember, they would have had these documents that we've just looked at. And don't forget, this isn't a one-off. We've mentioned this all the way through this fraud, that the register is not matching the documents. And significantly on many of them, as I've already said, a completely different name is put on the incorporation date of the company. So it would be the same date as on the incorporation document, but a completely different name. Now, that is a deliberate omission. This is a bit of an unusual one, because clearly you've got the document with this name on, but they've got it as that date. So that doesn't match. So in relation to Eversheds, bringing up previous research, you can see, so this is showing previous research documents that's links into other documents, evidential documents. It links to BCP, Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole Council, where all of this started. Remember, we've talked about. It also links to research surrounding the World Trade Center and Robert Maxwell and the Berlitz company that started up, and is linked to a German company that before 1900 incorporated media companies all around the world and set up educational establishments in multi-languages. So again, this is just showing Eversheds. Also links to Waterloo, as we've mentioned throughout. And here you can see it links to the World Trade Center disaster, so 9/11 I've put there. So if you look at my other documents, you will see Eversheds on them. Also the documents for Max Clifford. And now looking at Stephen Cox. Stephen Cox links to... Now remember, there are over 5 million companies. I need to keep saying that, because you'll realise how quickly all this overlaps. Cantor Fitzgerald was a tenant of the World Trade Center at the time of its collapse. It also links to the Health Service Research. Okay. And also to law stationers. So let's go back to the... So looking back at the other document, you'll hopefully recall that we mentioned Mr. Ashby as being the judge for this case. Now, there can be no case, as I've said, because an unlawful entity that has not been registered lawfully with any false details or a continuity of false details and false registration leading through to it. It's an unlawful entity. It cannot make any application or act in any way whatsoever. So, Mr. Ashby, let's look at Mr. Ashby. Now, I'm not saying Mr. Ashby is involved in any unlawful activity whatsoever. I'm just showing you public information in relation to this gentleman and the research that follows. So you can see here at the top left, 3pb.co.uk we're looking at here. And I'm going to read a little bit of this to you. On the right there, it says, "We are delighted to announce that the King has appointed 3pb personal injury and clinical negligence barrister Luke Ashby, pictured here, to be a district judge with effect from Monday the 31st of October 2022. District Judge Ashby will sit on the Western Circuit and be based at Bournemouth County Court." Now, you may recall from my other videos, I started to identify what was going on in around July 2022 and reported it to the police, I believe, in September 2022. And here we are, Mr. Ashby, a month later, comes across to Bournemouth, according to this article. It may be coincidence. But he also says that Luke Ashby was called to the bar, Middle Temple, in 2007 and appointed as a fee-paid first-tier tribunal judge. My company, as you've just seen, started in 2007, albeit it's an unlawful entity and should never have been trading. If we read on, we can see that consistently recommended in both leading legal directors, Chambers UK and Legal 500, and deputy head of 3pb's personal injury and clinical negligence group, Luke Ashby, Luke Ashby's practice focused on claims involving, my eyes are terrible, I'll have to zoom in on that, practice involving serious and life-changing injuries in the multi-track. He also regularly represented defendants in claims involving allegations of fraud and fundamental dishonesty. Okay, he had a particular experience in costs and high-value credit hire disputes. So let's follow on. Again, remember, I'm not saying Mr. Ashby is involved in anything untoward, but here we are, Companies House records for a company called Chambers UK Limited. If we move through, you can see here that Chambers UK Limited has on its incorporation document A1 Company Services Limited, an address of 788 to 790 Finchley Road in London. Now, if you're not already aware of that address and that company from my previous research, please look at the Ham and High article from 2019, and you will see that A1 and Finchley Road, that 788 790 Finchley Road, was specifically mentioned as being involved or linked, shall we say, to international fraud, linked to corrupt politicians, money laundering, and even mafia and dictatorships. So I suggest you go and look at that. And the concern was that that address was being used by over 260,000 companies at one point as an empty location, and they were still using it as a correspondence address. And we'll come to that a little bit later on in this document, but you can see the concerns that we already have with this. Now, moving on, you'll see that we're looking in Chambers UK, and you can see Paul Chambers is on the people record for it. And links through to Orchard Heights Limited, okay, which is a real estate company, I believe. Moving through, we can see that there's a John Peter Chambers. Okay, so we've got Paul Joseph Chambers and John Peter Chambers. So we're now looking within John Peter Chambers. Now, there's two records for John Peter Chambers. Now, Companies House, as I've established, should have realised that it's the same person. But here we go. We have two records, one for John Peter Chambers with 9 companies. Okay, and then we have another John Peter Chambers with the same date of birth with 3 companies linked to them on the left there. Now that should have been, it's clearly the same person, which I can see, but 2 records have been created. Now everybody would know or should know by now, but if it's the same person, all of their companies should be listed on the same record. So this appears to be a deliberate duplication of records, and this has happened right the way through this fraud. So we're now looking at another company here which links through to a John Peter Chambers. So we've got three different John Peter Chambers, very, very closely interlinked between companies. So you've got one with 9 companies linked, one with 3 companies. Now remember, these are legal professionals involved in these companies. The top, cream of the crop, solicitors that know law, know how to set up companies, presumably would have financial advisors, would have legal teams, people that would be aware of this. I was a Bobby on the beat, and I've established all of this. So you can see there's another record, the same person, same date of birth with 1 record. So we've got 3 duplicate records within legal firms. You can see the concern here. But linking through, we now have Galloway accountants linked through to them. And we're looking at Galloway, Colin Young, and Galloway Accounting Uckfield Limited. And Galloway's Accounting Uckfield Limited was started in 1999, July 1999, you can see on the left there. And then changed the name in 2020. And on their incorporation document here, if I can get more comfortable, we have, again, Finchley Road. Hopefully you can see that. I know, I'm sorry the documents aren't very good. I've tried my best with these, with the facilities I've got. Not only have you got Finchley Road, you've got a name of Keith Kahan. And you'll know from my other videos that Keith Kahan has cropped up frequently. But also you've got Temple Secretaries Limited. Temple Secretaries Limited has cropped up frequently as well. And they have no, the names have not been registered from their incorporation documents as they should have been. So that appears to be a deliberate omission. And you've also got Barbara Kahan, which is all very often linked closely with Keith Kahan on some of the companies you'll see from other documents. And that name was specifically mentioned within the Ham and High article as well as a name being used for fraudulent activity. And in fact, international fraud and money laundering involving corrupt politicians. But the information I have suggests that Barbara Kahn actually passed away in 2000, and yet there are companies still using her name, seemingly. You can see here just on the bottom there, you've got A1 Company Services again. Now looking at Orchard Heights, links through to them, you've got Mr. Chambers again, John Joseph Chambers, and Just Property Development Limited. Now some of these are dissolved companies, as you can see, but that was a company that links through to a Howard Thomas on the left there. He was appointed for 1 day as a secretary. That's quite often a sign of potential illegitimate activity. It's not unlawful, but it does obviously beg the question, why have people been a director for 1 day? And again, this was mentioned in the Ham and High article. And you can see that Howard Thomas has 7,859 companies. Now, Howard Thomas has featured a couple of times throughout the fraud. You will notice on some of the other documents. One person, 7,859. So now we're going to look at Legal 500. Okay, hopefully you recall that it was mentioned within Mr. Ashby's resume. Okay, you can see there, the Legal 500 series is the largest legal, on the right hand side there, largest legal referral guide in the world, with 5 to 6 million users globally compared with Chambers and Partners. Publications include editorials and GC Magazine. Please go and look at all this yourself. And it says about legal 500 again there. There's also mention of legalese limited on the left. So that led through to 500. And here we are. Let's look at this this company called the Legal Team Limited. And you can see at the right-hand side there, their former name was Legal 500 Limited from 2015, 2016. And we're now looking through from the Legal Team 500. And you can see a company, Claim Alert Limited, on the right. Now that address, Woodbury Grove on the right there, North Finchley, you can see just on the top right, that has been used for Barbara Cahan's linked addresses throughout the fraud. It was one of the addresses used. Then we're looking at Claim Alert Limited. And you can see on this company, again, we have A1 Company Services Limited of the address in Finchley Road. Okay, Legalise It Limited, which is incorporated on the 1st of February 2024. Okay, so a very recent company, Legalise It, or IT, I presume that's Legalise It Limited. And you can see that links through to a company called Companies Made Simple. Now that company, you will see, features all the way through the fraud, and so does this address. And it in fact leads to a company called Westco Nominees. And Westco Nominees, out of all of the companies I've had, has no name on the incorporation document for the company, and yet Companies House has attached it to the register, even though there's no name. And that's a very important company because that links the World Trade Center disaster to Larry Silverstein and through to the National Council for Civil Liberties, which was a company with Harriet Harman and Patricia Hewitt, where they had connections. And you can see that from my World Trade Center document, which I suggest you look at. And now we're looking at the incorporation documents more. And this is just a show, actually, so I forgot I'd done this. So you can see here, Companies Made Simple. This is their incorporation document. And on their incorporation document, we've got Westco Nominees. And when you, a Westco Nominees also features links to a shareholder within my company. So that's showing the previous research. But importantly, on the right there, you can see that there is no incorporation name at all on the document, and you can go and look at this. But it also links to Waterloo, and that name, Ian Saunders, features throughout the fraud. But you can imagine the implications of this: an incorporation document with no name. That suggests it's a forged instrument. It's a forged document. Don't forget, we've got solicitors linked to this. The legal system is linked to this. The World Trade Center, Ghislaine Maxwell, Robert Maxwell, Max Clifford, Jeffrey Epstein, all linked through this system. And here we are, a very important document indeed, linking through from the research in relation to the court case that I'm supposedly supposed to go to, which I won't be because it's completely unlawful. I've put in one of the emails actually that I can't even correspond with the company because they don't exist. They're not a lawful entity. And everything becomes unlawful from any decisions that are made at that court case. So you can see there's an address in Essex. I think that's an address that crops up a lot actually. So we're now looking at 3PB Limited. Remember 3PB was mentioned. And you can see that Waterloo's is on the documentation. So Memorandum and Articles of Association, Waterloo's. So now we're looking at Waterloo Business Supplies. And you can see that they had a previous name of the Solicitors Law Stationery Society Limited. And that is on the documents for many of the companies on the incorporation documents at the bottom. But again, looking at that company, you can see that Sundar Mansakani again is on there, and this name features all the way through the fraud. It's on Max Clifford's documents, company documents for his companies. When you research him, you can see that on the Max Clifford document that's within my file. But also this address, City Road, frequently pops up. And here we go, Stephen Cox Law Services again. So we're looking at 3PB Limited. You can see you've got QC, okay, a barrister of law on the right. And it links through to a 3PB Crime Limited company. And you can see it's got a care of address here of Bushnell Limited, MJ Bushnell Limited, 8 High Street, Brentwood. And looking through the incorporation documents for that company now. I hope I'm not going too fast. So you can see we've got on there MJ Bushnell Limited and High Street, Brentwood, Essex. And you can see on the incorporation document again, Waterlow's. Now Waterlow's links through to a one of the other shareholders within my company. Waterlow legal company, there you go, just to show that. And links through now to 3PB Management Limited. Address of Paper Buildings, Temple, London. Now, a lot of people have, hopefully everyone's understanding this. So you've got, this is showing the evidential links through from this, linking to forged documents, forged register, against the legal incorporation documents, and also showing the links through to other connections that have already been made where there is fraud throughout. So on the incorporation document for this one, you can see it's got Orangefield, Waterloo. So when we research Orangefield, Waterloo, it comes up and links through to Vistra. Remember, Vistra features throughout. We've already mentioned Vistra right at the beginning, linked to my company. That was Vistra Limited, and here we are, we've got Vistra Depository Services. And again, it links to, as we've said, Waterloo's. And then we've got an address of 50 Broadway. Now, 50 Broadway features throughout. You'll see that linking to certain police associated companies. Here we go, Orangefield Depository and Waterloo Secretaries, previous name. And on the incorporation document for that one, you can see it appears to be doctored potentially, but also this name frequently pops up and hasn't been registered on some occasions. And again, you can see here, see where the lines are missing. Sorry, I'm not explaining this. I'm presuming you've all seen the other documents, but this is probably a better example. So look where the lines are missing going through the middle here, but everything else has been written perfectly on the lines through the whole document. But this bit, and because it's a signed document, it suggests that they've altered the document to change the company name. Now and you can see the typo is different, but on some of them you can see that that the lines are very unusually and irregularly changed. This one you can see it's just gone from the middle, but the writing's still there. Okay. Then we're searching another Waterloo Information Services Limited. You can see Ian Saunders again on there. Now, I've just mentioned this again because it's an important case to remember. So the Betsy Cadwallader University fraud, where apparently £122 million of taxpayers' money appeared to go missing. And then when you look at Betsy Limited, that comes up when you search Betsy Cadwallader or Cadwallader University. Betsy Limited comes up, so that's just showing the search on Google. And again, an address in Essex. And you can see this is actually a better example of what appears to be a forged document. Now, I did an investigation. I know I've said this a few times on other videos. But look at this. Look at where the line is missing. And look what's missing at the top here. The writing's right over to the side. In fact, there's a line missing here along the top. That appears very clearly to me to be a forged document. This name again features throughout. Remember, that's taxpayers' money. Investigation, they said there was no evidence of fraud. Well, what about that? What about that? I was a police officer and that is clearly, to me, looks forged. Now, going back, remember we saw MJ Bushel Limited. Let's do a research on them. You can see the address is the same that's cropped up back then. And linking through from them, you've got a residence management company. Same address. Joint Block Residence Management Limited. And under them, you can see here you've got Nemo Secretaries Curzon House. Now, Curzon House does feature in the Max Clifford research. And under Nemo Secretaries, you've got Capita Property Management Limited. And here we are now looking at those. I don't want to take too long going through these. I know it's difficult because everyone's got different speeds. And on their incorporation document, you've got John Carter, on behalf of Temples Professional Services Limited. And again, remember the address, remember City Road. So we've got a connection again, City Road. And Temples Limited, as you see there. Oh, Kemp House, that crops up. And this is now showing the previous research. So we're now looking at Temples Limited, and that features on the Max Clifford research document. You've got Temples Professionals is also on the Max Clifford. Now, Max Clifford, if you read up about them, Max Clifford, Jeffrey Epstein, all these guys are all linked to international fraud. It's the research suggests it. As we all know, Jeffrey and Max went to prison and died in prison. Also known for being involved in all sorts of nefarious activities. It's recently come out, hasn't it, the Epstein list. And again, you can see it links to a company in Bournemouth. So we're doing a search on Capita. So Capita brings up this Bournemouth company. So this is just showing you the previous documents. Alpha Formations links to Capita. Oh, this is showing that a previous research I've gone shows that it links Alpha Formations to Capita PLC. Capita links to Jeremy Hunt Research, who is the Chancellor of the Exchequer as we speak, and Finchley Road. But importantly, the Special Advisor Research, the Special Advisor for the last few Prime Ministers, apparently Rishi Sunak's right-hand side at the moment is Douglas Dougie Smith. And this links to research in relation to him. And that links to BCP, Bournemouth, Christchurch and Paul Council. But he also links very closely through Sabre, a Sabre company, to the management companies surrounding mine and Ghislaine Maxwell as well as several church networks. So here we go. Alpha Searches brings up Epstein and Capita. So they're both linked to the research regarding Jeffrey Epstein as well. Now remember, we've got this massive child concern within the care service. I suggest you watch my videos, the NSPCC, Childline and the Virgin Foundation. Links to the concerns around the child, potential child trafficking network. There's links through to those companies. And I do suggest you go and look at them. And also the research in relation to the child protection concerns. Now, I thought I'd have a quick look at the Bournemouth courts. So I typed in Bournemouth County Court and it brought up Bournemouth and District Law Society. And they're based in Furvale Road. The police station I used to work at is just around the corner from that. In fact, right near it. And this may seem petty, but it's actually very important. Remember, this is a legal firm, so they would know about this. On the register, it's got "and" written with the word on the register, but on the incorporation document, which is probably, this is the best one to look at, you can see it's got "and" the symbol. Okay, now this is very important because this is a legal document, it's a legal register, and everything has to match the legal document to the register. And of course they would have seen this, but they have put "and" instead. May seem petty, but it's actually very important. So moving forward, we can see now we're looking within the same company. So the Bournemouth legal, what's it called? Bournemouth and District Law Society. And you can see that that person in Dorset links through to Code Range Limited. Okay, again, the same address. Borough Chambers, Furvale, slightly different, but same road. And on the bottom of their incorporation document, you have the London Law Agency. Now, you recall from other videos, that is a false entity company. That company's incorporation document is actually registered, or on the incorporation document is Ganvilon Motors. That's never been registered against that company, and yet it has it on its incorporation document. That's fraud. Moving on, we've got the Lymington and District Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And on their incorporation documents, you've got Form 10 directors. Now, they crop up all the time. You've also got Formations Direct Limited. And again, Form 10. And this shows that the previous research in relation to those companies links to Tobias Elwood, who is the MP for the area of where my company is. Okay, the building that it relates to. Tobias Elwood is the MP. Tobias Elwood is not responding to any of my emails at all. Okay, but it also links through to Formations Direct, links through to Rebec Brothers Limited, a management company for the area. Now, they link back in to Ghislaine Maxwell, to the special advisor. And they also link to a company which, if you look at my BCP, Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole Council document and video, through to Initiative Property Management Limited, which was supposedly being investigated by Dorset Police for millions of pounds worth of fraud. But watch that video and you'll see that actually that appeared to have been a way to dispose of evidence. And we're now looking back in the Bournemouth Legal Company, whatever it's called, I can't remember, and you've got Citizens Advice. Now, Citizens Advice has been completely corrupted by this. And you can see that despite trading since 1991, it appears as though they're panicking, and in February 2023 they dissolved. And they were based in Wimborne. But interestingly, on their, I think it was their memorandum of articles, the incorporation document was not there, but there's been no details filled out. None. No signatories. Nobody on the bottom of the form at all in relation to that document. Moving on, we've got Serenity Bournemouth, again in Wimborne. And looking at Serenity, you've got Finchley Road again. And again, Temple Secretaries Limited, as already mentioned, 788, 790 Finchley Road, and A1 Company Services. Again, they were mentioned, as I've said, on the Ham and High article. Please go and look at it. International links to international fraud. And you can see Temple Secretaries here. You've got different Finchley Road numbers. So you've got 788, but you've got another mention of 740 something. And you've got East Dorset Citizens Advice Bureau linked through the document as well. Now, if you think about it, Citizens Advice is a first stop, isn't it, for any legal advice? We're all advised to go and speak to Citizens Advice Bureau first. If that was to be corrupted, it's the first point of diversion, potentially, isn't it? To divert away from this. And here we go, we've got this person then links through to Ashbourne Asset Systems Limited, again in Wimborne. And here we go, Ashbourne Asset Management, Ashbourne Asset Assessment, I'm getting tired, Systems Limited. I think it's about 1:15 in the morning, actually, 1:30. But I've got to get this done. Links to Canada Square, you'll know from my previous research. Have a little look. Canada Square features throughout. Links to Max Clifford and Jeffrey Epstein as well, I believe. And on the incorporation document, you've got this name that features all the way through. Michael John Hope. Hasn't been registered most of the time. Quite probably a false identity. And the London Law Agency, again, that is 100% a false, unlawful, illegal entity, because the incorporation document does not match the register deliberately. And moving on, we've got Lacey's Limited. I believe that's a solicitor's firm. And you can see you've got various Pool Road addresses coming up. I think it's this bit. I might have missed it, actually. But here we go. We've got number 5 Pool Road, Bournemouth. I've already gone it, but there's somewhere within this document, there's loads of different numbers on Pool Road mentioned throughout. So what they're trying to suggest there's someone in every building practically down the road. But you can see Swift Incorporations Limited again. Remember, right back at the beginning, my company, Swift Incorporations Limited, where they've not registered the names. And Brunswick Place features throughout, and Jordan's and Sons of 21 St Thomas Street. Same address as Jordan's, of course. And then you've got the Deeds Depository Limited, so links through. Is it best to zoom out? It might be best to zoom out. They're an active company, 5 Pool Road. There we go, now we've got 43 Pool Road. Oh dear. And on their incorporation documents for that company, you've got Jordan's Limited again. Remember, it's an unlawful entity company. And here we go, we've got Sally Ann Carmichael. Okay, linked to, we're now back into the Bournemouth Law Company. I can't remember the name, but they link through to a management company that's still active. Commercial Road, that address is used quite frequently in Poole, and then that also links through to Jordan's Limited, an unlawful entity company. Turner Solicitor. This is interesting because this links into other research that's been secured but not publicised yet, but this address, 10 Bridge Street, links a lot through to associated councils, companies. That was dissolved in November 2023. Appears they may be getting worried. It was incorporated in 2004. Remember, I started reporting the fraud in September 2022. And then on, why have I highlighted this? Oh, we go. We've got another address in Pool Road. It's almost farcical, isn't it? So you've got several addresses in Pool Road, all very quickly mentioned, aren't they? And tied in. And here you go. You can see under that person, we've got Blanchard's, and they're now in liquidation. According to this, Blanchard's leaks to the research. If you go and look at my critical child protection research, that's a bit of an eye-opener, that is. Go and look at the document and the video. You'll see that Blanchard's features in the research. And then we've got this link through now. So we've gone through from the Bournemouth Legal Company, whatever it was back when we looked at. And you can see that this Mr. Coombs' links to Bournemouth School. And then within Bournemouth School, you've got links to this person, and that person links pretty much all of the management companies around my building through to Initiative Property Management, fraud throughout. You're talking many, many management companies linked. But interestingly, within Bournemouth School, as already mentioned, I believe you've got the Police and Crime Commissioner for the Dorset area. If you don't know who they are, they work alongside the Chief Constables. And remember, the Chief Constable and Deputy Chief Constable has been moved from Dorset to Hampshire since I've been reporting this fraud, but not for the right reasons, according to what they publicised. And here we go, we've got an address in Coal Hill. This person then links through to the Institute of Indirect Taxation. I believe this address cropped up earlier, same address being used. And on the back and bottom of their documents, you have this company, which has already cropped up. Vielvasper. Sounds very German, doesn't it? Vielvasper. And on their incorporation document, you've got these other tax-related companies. Remember, this all relates to taxation system as well. I've stopped paying my tax. I can't pay my tax. And here's just showing it links to Vielvasper, linked through to the child protection research document, all stemming around, starting from points of very obvious child protection concerns in the care service. And we've got another connection through to now there's a very evident child trafficking ring in relation to all of this. But this is just copied now from an online report that I've made to Dorset Police. I can't remember the date, but it was fairly recently, and it relates to everything that I've just shown you. And it said, here's the reference number at the top that was generated from my report. I've had no response. I think it was about 6 days ago. And it says, as you will know from my previous reports, irrefutable evidence of international fraud linked to child trafficking and to Dorset Police is circulating the globe. Those involved with my company removed me discriminately as a director after uncovering the fraud and are trying to enforce my service charge payments through an illegal civil case into a fraudulent process to victimise me further, and where the judge is linked to the fraudulent system. Again, I'm not saying he's directly involved. They have refused any measures to prevent further victimisation, as already explained to you. My company itself is an illegal entity, so cannot make any legal application. This unfortunately means my counterclaim can also not proceed. The courts are refusing to provide suitable legal documents, and have exposed the corrupt legal system even further. Any court process or subsequent action regarding my property will be completely unlawful, and I will be justified in taking remedial action, which includes the increasing necessity to form public arrest teams to peacefully arrest those involved, due to them becoming an imminent threat to mankind. And I actually don't think I'm exaggerating, because remember, this links through to the vaccines. We've got evidence in relation to the World Trade Center, it links through to Gaza, it links through to many, many things. There's also the 5G mask going up, directed energy laser weapons, whole nother thing that I'm going to talk about, but it's very, very concerning, all of this. So it is becoming an increasing threat, I believe. Those that should be acting on this information are not doing so, forcing the public to take appropriate action. Much of the evidence is being shown in the YouTube link below, and there are thousands of supporting documents. All government organisations appear to be refusing to take responsibility for this. Here's the link to the videos that you're all seeing. Suspect details can be supplied on request. So that has been sent to Dorset Police. No response whatsoever. Remember, I've had no response from any of the MPs, 650 or so MPs. Nothing in relation to the child protection case that you hopefully will see my videos of, where I'm asking them to contact me because I have evidence concerns about this child. That's all still going on. Okay, I'm still very worried about that child, very worried about all the children in the care service. Nobody is addressing any of this at all. And just finally, I'm just going to show you an email that was sent 2 days, final email to the court. Thursday the 4th of April 2024. It's actually yesterday because it's gone midnight. And it says, "Good afternoon, I hope you are well. As you know, I'm a former police officer and there are now significant concerns that the legal process has been infiltrated by an international system of fraud linked to child trafficking throughout. I've contacted you repeatedly in relation to an order summons regarding claim number," and then I put the claim number, "and to request that it is signed and identified by its creator, but you have refused to do so." This is to count the Bournemouth County Court. "Any legal document such as this, which states there will be possible legal or financial consequences of non-attendance, must clearly identify its creator and authority on the document itself. I have asked you to clarify why you have refused to ensure that the document is endorsed as such, and you have not responded. You have been provided verifiable and corroborative evidence that shows that the claimant, Expo Manor Freehold Limited, is an unlawful entity due to its fraudulent incorporation with Companies House. Incorporation with Companies House, and can therefore not act in any way as a company, which includes initiating any legal process. I have attached a document showing this evidence taken from Companies House again. You can verify this information by searching the companies shown on the Companies House register here." Then I put the link. "Unfortunately, this means that I can make no further counterclaim myself against Expo Manor Freehold Limited, despite having previously paid a fee to do so. This is despite Expo Manor Freehold Limited trying to enforce an unsigned lease, having allowed others to have omitted at least £167,000 of service charges from 2015 to 2022, when I have paid my contributions on every occasion prior to identifying the very serious fraud. Others within the company have refused to safeguard the finances around the company, despite Dorset Police at one point confirming that fraud had been identified in my reports to them, and those within the company discriminately removing me as a director for refusing to file forged bank documents whilst a director. Any subsequent action taken from any such court case will be completely unlawful, and I will have no choice but to take remedial action. Aside from this, I have also secured verifiable evidence linking the proposed judge and the solicitor being used by Expo Manor Freehold Limited to the system of fraud. All of the information, including this email, and will now be placed into the public domain for theirs and my protection. Thank you very much." Now, I can't go to the court hearing. I can't respond to my company. I have no proof that they're lawfully trading. I have to treat them as an unlawful entity with this information. They cannot actually initiate anything. So it's completely flawed, but it means, now I had a very good case. I was making a £10,000 claim for various reasons, but I can't even do that. My property's worthless. I've probably lost over £200,000 in my property because of the fire safety concerns and all of this fraud going on. So I've lost out massively, and I won't be the only one because of this system of fraud, and nobody's doing anything about it. Everyone seems to be involved in terms of most organisations. The legal systems appears to be completely corrupted by this, as you've just seen. That's only looking at one specific case. The child protection case that's going on is riddled with the fraud, riddled with links to what appears to be a child trafficking ring, going back to Ghislaine Maxwell and the offshore Parlimentry group that's been set up for islands around the UK. Please go and look at my critical child protection document on that. It's just a mess, isn't it? It's an absolute mess. It's got to stop. And it looks as though the people's going to have to stop it, but it needs to be done in the right way, strategically. Everyone's got to be the better people. These people are lost souls. They can't carry on as they are. It's over. It's over.